We were discussing changes that happen to nouns in the construct, particularly to vowels, that kamatsas will become patas, that propretonic kamatsas will reduce to shava, and that in some cases seres can become patas, at least in the word elder, and the diphthongs AW and AY will contract, so that mavet, death, will become moat, and bayit, house, will become bait. But then we were talking about how secondary changes can take place too. So now I gave you the example of berakah, where the first kamatz is going to become a kamatz hey will become a patah tav, and the second kamatz has to become a shava, but then the two shava rule comes into play, and so the construct of berakah becomes berkat. Same thing with the word anashim, men. Well, you'll have the kamatz here will reduce to shava, and so your hypothetical form is going to be a hataf patah and a shava, but that's two shavas in a row, and the rule of resolving that is that the first vowel becomes the half vowel, the patah, and so anashim in construct becomes anshe, men of, and devarim, well, the first kamatz reduces to shava when you add the plural ending, because of the propretonic kamatz rule. But then when you make it construct, hirik yod mem becomes seri yod, but the accent shifts down so that this kamatz also becomes propretonic and reduces to shava. But then you have two shavas in a row, so to resolve that, the first one becomes a hirik. So you have divrei, words of, is the construct of devarim. Now, the plural constructs of sigilate nouns are a bit different. Melek, as it turns out, that with sigilate nouns in the singular, the construct form and the absolute form happen to be the same. So king of Israel is Melech Yisrael, does not change. But when you make the noun plural, you get malakim with the kamatz here, but that kamatz is a little bit phony. The real vowel for this kind of sigilate is actually an A-class vowel, and you get malke. There's kind of a complicated story behind why this is so. Some of them will have an A vowel here. Some of them will have an I vowel here. There's even some, if there's O-class sigilates, they might even have an O vowel. There should be a discussion in the future that'll explain exactly why sigilates behave the way they do later on. Some forms in the construct may be proclitic, that is, they may be joined by a makef to the noun in the absolute state and have a corresponding vowel reduction. So if you have bain, well, if you make it with a makef, well, then the accent is definitely shifted down and it will become ben. And it has to be ben because a unaccented closed syllable requires a short vowel, so it goes from long E sere to short E sagol. So in summary, the following chart shows the changes in the construct form for each of the main types of nouns. So horse in the absolute is sus. Horse in the construct is the same, sus. But then plural horses, susim, in construct becomes susei, and the rule is Hirik Yod Mem has to become Seri Yod. Susa, mer, in the construct becomes Susat, following the rule that Patah T has to become Kamatz He. In the plural, mers is Susot, and there's nothing to reduce here, so the construct is also Susot. Davar, word, in construct, there'll be two changes. One is that the kamatz in a closed syllable has to become a patah, and the propretonic kamatz has to reduce to shava, the accent essentially shifting down when a word is in construct. The plural form is devarim, where kamatz here becomes propretonic and reduces to shava when you add the plural ending. But then when you make it construct, this kamatz also reduces to shava. You have two shavas in a row. The first one becomes a hirik. A similar sort of thing happens with hakam, the word adjective meaning wise, or it could mean a wise man, a sage. The absolute form has two kamatzes. In construct, the first kamatz will be in a unaccented closed syllable, and so sage of would have a patah here, and the second kamatz must reduce to shava. However, because of the guttural, gutturals don't like vocal shavas, they like a vowel, so you give it half of an a, half a shava, hataf patah, and you end up with hakam. In the plural, it becomes hakamim, sages, or wise men, and does the same thing here. The kamatz becomes propretonic and so must reduce to shava, but the guttural won't want to let it go all the way to simple shava, so it has to be a composite shava, hataf patah. But then when you make that form, sages, into a construct, then it becomes hakmeh. This kamatz under the kaf reduces to shava. Then you would have two shavas in a row. You can't have two shavas in a row, so it becomes the vowel of the hataf, the half vowel, and it ends up being a patah from the hataf patah. So you get hakmeh, sages of. With the word man, you have ish. Construct is the same, ish. Plural is irregular, anashim. But then the construct, this kamatz must reduce to shava. You can't have two shavas in a row, so you end up with the vowel, the half vowel, and the seri yod is the construct form of the plural ending hirik yod mem. It basically loses the mem and adds a dog h here. Ayin, I. In the construct, that ay is unstable, that diphthong, ayi, and becomes the seri yod a. So I is ayin, I of is ain, and then the dual is einayim. The dual construct is einay. Again, the ayim in construct is the same as a plural ending in construct, seri yod, when you get rid of that diphthong of ayi. King, Melech, does not change in construct, is still Melech. King's Malakim does change, but it follows a sigilate pattern, and this is an A-class sigilate, so you get an A vowel here, Malke. Bain in the absolute usually shows up as Ben with a makef, son of, though sometimes it'll go all the way to a hirik, bean. So either Bain or bean, but in any case it has to go from a long vowel to a short vowel because the accent has shifted. The plural of Ben is banim, a little bit irregular, but it will be regular in the construct because this kamatz will become propretonic. So sons of Israel, B'nai Yisrael, the kamatz reduces to shava because the accent is on Israel, and thus propretonic kamatz reduces to shava. Now, the order of the nouns in a construct relationship is fixed and invariable. The construct noun, which is the more general word, always stands first, and the noun that modifies it takes the second place. And any prepositions that are involved must be prefixed to the very first noun, the construct noun, and qualifying adjectives have to follow the noun in the absolute. Moreover, the article is never prefixed to a noun in the construct state. It is rather prefixed to the noun at the end of the construct state. And what that means is that if the last word of a construct chain is definite, then the entire chain is definite. Example, Beit HaMelech. That has to be translated the house of the king. Now, you only have one article, the one on king, but because this is in construct, if the last word of the chain is definite, the whole chain is definite. So you need to translate it the house of the king. On the other hand, if Melech were to lack the article, then the entire chain would be indefinite. So Beit Melech would be a house of a king. Now, if the second noun in the construct relationship is a proper name, well, then the whole chain is considered to be definite. By definition, a proper name refers to a very specific person, and therefore it's considered definite. So you have Ir David, the city of David. David is a personal name and is therefore considered definite, and therefore city has to be considered definite, or anything connected with Yahweh, Davar Adonai, the word of the Lord. It would be definite all the way through, the word of the Lord, because Yahweh is a definite person. The other way where nouns can be indicated to be definite is through pronominal suffixes, which we will learn about in a later lesson. In order to make the second noun definite and the first noun indefinite, you'd have to resort to a different kind of construction. So if you want to talk about a son of the king, the way you could do that is to say Bain, a son, La, belonging to the Melech king. And so La, preposition La can have the sense of belonging to, and therefore, a son belonging to the king can mean the son of a king. And so that would express the same idea as a son of the king. Again, notice the patah under the lamed indicating that the noun is definite. But if you use construct, then either the whole chain is definite or the whole chain is indefinite. Now, as we've said, an adjective modifying a noun in a construct chain must follow the chain. So if you want to talk about the good horse of the queen, well, horse of the queen is sus hamalka. If you want to talk about the good horse of the queen, it'd be sus hamalka hatov. Hatov is modifying sus, but you can't break up the chain. You have to put it after the chain. And in this case it's clear because tov is masculine singular, sus is masculine singular, malka is feminine singular, so there's no other choice than to translate it the good horse of the queen. Or you could have susot malka hatovot, susot, horses of the queen, the good ones. Again, tovot is plural feminine, horses is plural feminine.